Good evening. William Meehan here, 1799. Glad you could come around. I want to hit something here. Okay. Still basic common sense here. Your stock market, Dow Jones Industries, layoffs, factory shutdowns, factory moving overseas. Interesting, isn't it? When you don't produce anything, this is what happens. Okay. Your stock market has nothing. You're not shipping anything. You're not producing anything. You're not making anything. Okay. So what happens here is Americans suffer. I went out to go pick up some stuff that I work with, model aircraft, and some regular tools I work on my Jeep that I work on. And I was kind of like really unhappy because everything I was looking at was made in China. China is one of the biggest producers and yet biggest shippers to the United States. With that, so are the trade agreements as well. What I mean by trade agreements. When Trump was in office, we were at a bad disadvantage with China when it comes to the trade agreements. Now, let me stop right here a minute. I'm not here to defend Donald Trump. He could do that himself. In fact, he's doing a better job than we can think. But getting back to what I was saying here. I was looking around at a lot of stuff, picking up items and looking at them and reading the back part, which is there was a little tag right back there. All made in China. This is made in China. Socket wrench is made in China. And I was kind of really dumbfounded because I kept walking around. Lamps made in China. Toys made in China. All kinds of stuff made in China. I hardly found anything made in America except maybe a pair of socks and maybe some underwear. Sad, isn't it? This is what happens, though, to Americans when you produce nothing, you have nothing. I also, when I left some of the stores, I went to a convenience store to pick up a cup of coffee. I also noticed there was a couple trucks out there with some people in them, and they were homeless. And I gave one of the guy a couple bucks, But it made me think too, their situation in this country. More and more people are homeless because of no industry. More and more people are paying out more money and paying bills with credit cards, which interest rates, the way they are, thanks to this administration. Which now comes to this point, where are we sitting with China? When Biden took office, okay, Schumer on one side, Pelosi on the other, Biden sitting at the desk, whole stack of stuff that Trump had done. Biden undid every damn one of them, from the pipeline to industry, you name it, everything. Which put us in a very bad predicament, because that's when the stock market started to tumble down and still stayed at where it is today. It picks up, goes back down, picks up, goes right back down. And high inflation rates. And banks are also feeling the pinch. Some banks are feeling very bad situations where they're going bankrupt themselves. Many people are going bankrupt. Many people are actually foreclosing. Terrible, isn't it? What happened? A lot of businesses cannot stay in business in this country because one of the high taxes, supply chain problems, and labor problems. In order for them to be competitive on the market, they're going to have to somehow reduce their costs in order to be productive on the market, so they lay off people. Some people never get called back. Some of these executives move their industry overseas, which is cheaper labor And usually they could pay a person maybe $2 a day or 50 cents a day. And then ship it back here in the United States. And you would pay the same price as if it was made here in the United States. And I did find that too, because I found a pair of sneakers, believe it or not, only about $10 cheaper than were made here in the United States. Terrible, ain't it? Which drives us the problem here. When you have inflation and interest rates way up here, and labor costs are way at the bottom here, there's a big gap, right? That gap is causing a bigger problem on the industry itself. So we're not producing anything. Now, Schumer tried to make a deal with the president of China, which that didn't fall very well. It fell flat on his face, basically. And then here we're still dealing with the same problems with labor costs. Or lack of labor, I would say. We have minimum wage hikes, yes. Some are non-union. They pay between $20, $18, $20, maybe a little bit more. If you're a union, you're definitely making between 35, 40 bucks an hour, maybe, give or take a little. The sad part about all this is foreign goods. They flood our markets because they're cheap. And thanks to this administration is the reason why we're in this predicament today. They don't care about the American people. All they want to worry about is gun control, Donald Trump, and splitting the country up in half, or quarters, or whatever it may be. And that's the sad thing about this, because you have no real plan on how to deal with something like this. And yet the sad part about it is that American people are suffering. Now, Ukraine is a classic example of that, and I emphasize it's pretty interesting. The Kremlin had installed a government into Ukraine. That government was funneling the money that Ukraine was making back to the Kremlin, thus making Ukraine a slave state, or a slave country, I would say. Well, that can happen here. You have China now that's practically telling our administration here what to do. When it comes to gun control, it comes to your rights, it comes to everything else. You even got the United Nations involved. Now, why? Our problems are here. But Biden says the economy's never been better. Better than 40 years, right? While other countries are gearing up for possible war, NATO and some of the other countries are complaining that running out of ammunition, including, we're saying the same thing here. We're not producing anything. Our strategic reserves are low since the 70s. Terrible, ain't it? We should be doing the opposite. We should be literally making the strongest trade agreements that we can. Instead, they did the opposite. And here's where we're at with this. We should be cranking up our factories, refurbish our armor, heavy armor. We should be refurbishing more in our vehicles, ships, aircraft. Yes, it's higher technology than it was back in the 40s, but we should be able to turn it out. We're not doing that. Everything's laying idle. Yet he wants to ship billions of dollars to who knows where. And here we sit here idle. China would love to take this country over and make us a slave country to them. All we've become is consumers. And the argument with industry and a lot of these CEOs are stating that, well, we're too costly. In order to stay competitive, we need to reduce labor costs. You can't reduce labor costs when you have taxes up here, wages down here. Who did that? Administration did that. When Trump was in office, it was a different story here. He got us the trade agreement that was equal or fair. We were making money. People were buying houses. People were getting loans. People were buying vehicles. When the administration took over, the total opposite. They worry about themselves up there in Washington, not you. They'll say it's everything else under the sun but the truth. Those institutions up there in Washington belong you to the American people. You're the taxpayers of this mess. You're paying with money you ain't even got. But yet they hold their hand out for campaign money. Hold their hand out, oh look, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then they get up there and forget all about you. And that's the sad part about this. We should be turning out war missile equipment. At least that will pump our stock market up. Now, the Biden administration told Salt Lake City not to sell ammunition to civilians anymore. Any other government contracts that are made with other ammunition companies are also to follow suit. I don't know which ones they are, though. Will they do that? I don't know. But that's another form of gun control, too, by the way. When you strip the economy out from under the people, this is what happens. People are living on the streets. People are losing their homes. People are living on credit cards. Banks are foreclosing because they can't hold on to this sort of craziness with the economy what it is. And we're printing out money that's practically almost worthless. If this is what you want, then you continue this path. But you need to tell those politicians up there to get up off their dead asses and start getting our industry back into motion here. Have stricter trade agreements with China, stricter trade agreements with other countries. If not, who knows what's going to happen. Your economy is your strongest weapon, believe it or not. Making concessions with your enemy or your adversaries is not a smart move. And hoping for the best. And that's the problem with this administration. It constantly coddles China, but then looks at you as a threat. Sad, isn't it? Really, really sad. Yes, when Trump got in office, he disrupted their little plan. Well, I guess their plan was to make money and not you. Oh well. Now they got their plan back in motion again. Yes, there's a 4-year law in there because Trump was in there and these politicians weren't making anything. Now it's a reversal. Politicians are making anything and you're starving. You're struggling to make ends meet. You're struggling to put food on the table. You're struggling to pay your bills. You're struggling to put taxes and keep your roof on there. And you're struggling for fuel. Should not be this way. We shouldn't be just consumers, we should be also producers. But this administration doesn't believe that. Because everything is a Green New Deal, and this Green New Deal is an excuse to shut down industry. And that's all it's been. Because if they believe, and they're telling the people with these idea of electric cars and windmills and solar panels, that we, the United States, is going to be the leader of clean energy. Boy, I hate to tell somebody, but you're still in dreamland. You need to wake up. No one country can save the entire world, and that's a proven fact. Nor can one country take over the entire world. Germany tried. Failed. Good thing, too. All I can say is put pressure on those politicians. Get our industry back. Get our war effort back. We need to get these industries rolling. We need to start producing big time. Till then, keep your friends and family close. We'll catch you around.